This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in Northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and sometimes I write about the rest of the state. God, don't you love these giant glasses I got? My reading glasses. My others broke. Okay, so today I want to update you on some research I've been doing, and I want to start by showing you the check ledger um, from the Columbus Housing Authority. So let me share my screen. That will be my next effort. So we're going to talk about some of the characters in this research, and we're also going to talk about some extravagant spending. But today I want to start with this. We're going to look at uh, this T. Miller Roofing Company. So T. Miller Roofing has done several projects for the Columbus Housing Authority that I can see, starting in what I have is I collected from 2023 forward. So they did a repair job in let's see, February 15th, 2024 for Clover Street 16th Avenue repairs. And then what's the next one? They did it, there's the Clover Street. Let me go back up. The first one is Materials and Labor, 1705 12th Avenue North for $1,900. And that one was in December of 2023. Then they did the one in 2024, in February 2024 for 4,000 and some change. Then they did, it looks like emergency repairs on 1202 and 1208 Clover, and then something 1709. That was for 3735. And then they did work on the 25th on April 15th of 2025, on some roofing on 315 Wintergreen Cove. And that's pretty much where we are. Now, why does this matter? Well, remember, it's under the limits of I think 50,000 is the threshold that you have to send stuff out to bid. But these are repairs or these are small jobs. And T. Miller Roofing is Tyshun Miller. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of things. So let's go over to the Secretary of State site. And I'm going to show you that Tyshun Miller is not listed as a business owner, nor is his business listed. So let's do T. Miller. This will get roofing, construction, anything else. So there's T. Miller Contracting in good standing. So let's look at this one. That is not in Columbus or Lowndes County, or Louisville's about roughly 45 minutes from here. These are not T. Miller as in Tyshun Miller. Okay. And let's see what it says about this business. What do they do? Let's just check. They do drywall and insulation. Clearly not a roofer. So let's go back. Let's look up Tyshun Miller by his name. So I'm going to go officer name, and I'm going to go Tyshun Miller. And there is nothing, zero. So let's go registered agent under that name. There's nothing. Now, what I did find is far more disturbing. This gentleman, Tyshun Miller, he's from Crawford, Brooksville, Knoxville County areas where he apparently grew up. And at the age of 23, he was incarcerated for armed robbery, and he did an 8-year stint with MDOC. So that means he's a violent criminal. He served the complete sentence. He served the entire 8 years. So while there's nothing wrong with being a former rehabilitated felon, where it possibly is a problem or it is a questionable issue is that a felon cannot be bonded. And so this person is doing work on public housing that is to care for the most vulnerable, where there are elderly people and vulnerable children. And he has a history of violence. An armed robbery is a pretty serious crime. But even more concerning to me is that he's not licensed and he's not bonded. If you're not licensed and you're not bonded, who are they going to sue if he doesn't do the job right? Who are they going to sue and recover the damages if they cause more damage than they repair? Also, is this person doing larger projects for the Columbus Housing Authority? And I don't even know yet if he's doing any work over at CHODO, the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization, the nonprofit arm, because I can't see that. But my question to you is, why are no background checks being done? Who's behind hiring this fellow? Is he the only roofer in town that can do this? I just don't know. So when I looked up his business, so let's do that too. We will look up where his address is. Let's see, T. Miller Roofing. It gives a Maple Street address. Now, 156 Maple Street, as you will see, is a house. It's in a neighborhood. So this is not, this is a rental house. He rents the house. It belongs to someone else per the Lowndes County tax assessor's page. And this is clearly in a neighborhood. Maple Street is, it's a nice little older neighborhood built in the 50s, probably 50s and 60s. And so, yeah, there's no brick and mortar business, which isn't unusual in this day and age, but it's just one more red flag for me. But I think the biggest one is the fact that he is not licensed in the state of Mississippi. And yeah, anyways, that explains that. So let's look at these credit card statements that I wanted to reference today. So I'm going to close this so that I'll stop the share. Okay. So I'm looking at the credit card statements. For the credit card is in Robert Graythry, the director of the Columbus Housing Authority's name. The Columbus Housing Authority has a credit card that they put the travel expenses, they put other things on there, but travel expenses for the flights of the commissioners and Robert Graythry if they travel for training or any of his employees. They also put allegedly the first night's stay on that credit card, and then the rest of it is paid for out of the per diem and the expenses of the commissioners and what they are given. And they're giving a check, and we've talked about that earlier, and they get a fee so that they get X amount per day for their per diem, for their meals. If they spend beyond that, they have to spend their own money. Clearly, if they buy alcohol, that's beyond their per diem. They got to pay for that out of their own pocket. And they get money to pay for their hotel rooms. So, which brings me to this question. Let me see what this is, 5/24. I believe this is in 2024. There is a charge on the credit card for $199.47 at the Sheraton of Flowwoods Lobby Cafe Bar. Not sure what drinks they were drinking and why that got put on the credit card. There are quite a few charges on this over the months for Oriental Trading Company, and I don't know what they're buying. Oriental Trading Company, you buy tchotchkes for rewards when you do like Halloween, if you want to give out toys instead of money or instead of candy, you can buy decorations, all kinds of things. So I'm not really sure why they're spending money roughly each month from OTC, which is Oriental Trading Company, but they do. So right before he went to the Sheraton Flowwood, he charged on May 22nd of 2024, $96.74 to Oriental Trading Company. Now, why does that matter? Okay, so if, and I think this is what part of what he's doing, he is charging monies that should go to that for things that he's purchasing for Chodo, which is the nonprofit, he's purchasing it on the Columbus Housing Authority's books. Now, maybe that's not a big deal because these are small numbers, like $96. Well, as you'll look later, there's some much bigger purchases he's made. He's done things like repair the gates at Chodo, which is not owned by Columbus Housing Authority, is owned by the nonprofit. So he's crossing over monies that shouldn't be crossed over, so that you can't really see the budget spending at Chodo. And he's already moving money from CHA over to Chodo. So it's very, very strange. Okay. On June 15th, he went to the Shell company and bought $50 worth of gas. It's going in his personal car. I don't know. Maybe that was, I don't know. On June 27th of 2024, there's a charge to Harvey's for $31.32. Clearly, that's not buying lunch for a meeting. That's a personal expense. Then on July 9th, he went to Gibson's Hugo's, which is a very expensive restaurant, and he spent $295.88. So that's a very expensive dinner, and I wonder who was his guest. And why was he buying meals on the company credit card when he got per diem as well as everyone else? Then there's a $340 charge to PayPal for Leandra John, and I have no idea what that is. I can't figure out what that's to, what he bought, what he did. But $340 without any context is a large purchase. I don't know if he bought, I don't know if that's clothing line. I don't know if that's, I don't know what it is, but that's a very expensive amount to be putting on the credit card on PayPal on the Columbus Housing Authority's money. Then in August 21st of 2024, there's a charge to Mary Mahoney's restaurant in Biloxi. Now, Mary Mahoney's is a nice restaurant, but is it $799.93 nice? I don't know. Clearly, that's not just buying yourself dinner. So who is he entertaining? If he's entertaining his own commissioners, why are they getting per diem? Shouldn't they be paying this back? I don't know. Then, while he's down on the coast, he goes to the Beau Rivage for $704.87 in charges. And then he gets home, and on September 19th, that he bought something at Noetta's, which is a flower shop, a lovely flower shop, I might add. I like shopping at Noetta's, but $248.34 worth. I mean, this man does not put on grand fêtes like Nancy Carpenter with beautiful spreads and flowers and all that. Now, if there was a reception over at the Columbus Housing Authority's nonprofit, the Chodo, and he was buying flowers for an event over there, why is it coming out of the credit card for the Columbus Housing Authority and not for the nonprofit? I just have questions. Then on September 26th, he went to Eddie V's in Orlando. So he must have been traveling because I can see that there was hotel charges. And Eddie V's is a really nice restaurant in Orlando. And he dropped $509.73 on a meal. $509.73 of government money. And then on September 30th, he goes to Harvey's and spends $87.91. Now, I am assuming that that was uh, him and one other person. Now, what did they buy? Probably steak and had a lovely drink or two, a bottle of wine. I don't know. But $87.91 is not what they spend on their meetings. They spend between 220 and $240 to feed their team that comes for their meetings that they have. They work over a dinner hour. So I don't know where this 87.91 came because it's definitely not on a meeting day. And then on October 8th, he went to, I think, a gas station called that's business is Primica One and spent $40 even. And then on October 8th, he spent $241.82 at Superior Fish Products. Maybe they were having a fish fry. Don't know. Not sure. Now, was the fish fry for, again, Chodo or CHA? I don't know. I just have questions. Then on October 25th, he went to Dick's Sporting Goods and spent $203.27. And then it looks like about 2 weeks later, on November the 7th, he went back to Dick's Sporting Goods and $181.90 was spent. And then on January 21st of 2025, he went to Harvey's and spent $18.48. And then on December 30th of 2024, he purchased a subscription to a game called Kahoot. Now, as a teacher, I've used a former teacher, I've used Kahoot, and it's a great tool. You can get a free version. You don't have to buy the paid version. But anyways, they got this game Kahoot, and it's an educational game, and it was a $300 licensing fee. Now, I go back to they run an after school program over at Chodo, the nonprofit. They have a lady who has a consulting business who runs that program. I'm not sure why the credit card used, and I can see that this is, this is a useful game. I mean, it's a great way to quiz kids, and it's kind of like playing Jeopardy in a way with you create your own tests. So, but $300 coming out of the Columbus Housing Authority, it just doesn't seem right. And then in January 22nd, they spent $50 at Oriental Trading Company again. And then on January 30th, they spent $40 at Kroger Fuel. So somebody's filling their car up on this credit card. Then on February 11th of 2025, they spent $98.99 at the Best Western. Now, I know that they have helped house people because they had smoke damage or something happened in the housing that they provided, but they don't usually put them up at Best Western. So I don't know what this was for. May have a logical explanation. I just don't know. Then on February 14th, they spent $357.72 at Walmart. I don't know what they bought. Toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning supplies. Don't know. It's not annotated. And then on February 19th, 2025, somebody went to Longhorn and spent $27.56. Clearly that wasn't feeding a whole group. So I don't know why someone took themselves for a meal at Longhorn on the company credit card. Then on February 22nd of 2025, there are 2 charges to the McWane Science Center, which is in Birmingham. One is $928.40, and another one on the same day is $818.40. Now, they probably took the kids from the after-school program, and it's a good chance that this was a holiday weekend. It's probably presidential week, President's Day or something, because it's February. So again, why is this being charged on the Columbus Housing Authority credit card and not coming out of the monies for Chodo? And why is so much money from the Housing Authority being moved over to Chodo and not used to pay for Chodo things? It doesn't work. Then on February 20th of 2025, somebody was at the Golden Nugget bar and restaurant in Biloxi, when I know that he was staying at the Beau Rivage, as were all the other commissioners. And there are two charges on the credit card, one on the 20th for $66.63. That's definitely not a room charge, because they were staying at the Beau Rivage. I'm thinking he had a dinner or a few drinks. And then on the 22nd at the Golden Nugget, there's another charge for $19.02. Then on March 11th at Del Frisco's, oh, a very nice restaurant in Washington, D.C., he dropped $470. This is a steakhouse. I like going there. On March 11th, he also placed an order for Oriental Trading Company for $56.93. Again, what are they buy? What are these tchotchkes they're buying and why? And then there are two charges to Sandestin Golf on April the 6th, one for 1245.28 and one for 2019.92. Are those for two different commissioners, or is that all of his rooms, which he's supposed to only charge the first night? I don't know. I have questions. Then on May the 6th, there's a $45.96 charge to Colton Steakhouse. And then on May the 13th, there's an Uber in California that was paid for with $76.91. Whoa, that's probably from the airport into town. And then there's my favorite one, because this is one of my favorite restaurants when I used to live on Bainbridge Island near Seattle. On May 15th, there was $274.13 spent at Elliott's Oyster House on the waterfront in Seattle, Washington. And I know that Mr. Guthrie was out there for a conference, but that's probably two, maybe three meals at two people or maybe three people eating at Elliott's Oyster House. So is he entertaining others? Does he have approval? Are any of those others the commissioners who are getting that per diem? And exactly, gosh, he's just living high off the hog on your and my federal tax dollars. So this is not just Columbus dollars. These are your tax dollars for anybody who pays federal taxes. So my question now becomes, let's look at the board. Now, I will say this, Kedra Gibbs Gray was it Gray Gibbs? Anyways, Kedra is the president of the Board of Commissioners. And Kedra has been very responsive to my questions, and she appears to be sincere in exploring all of the things I have questions about. And she has probably had some questions of her own now. So then I have approached the board, and I got some real serious questions about why members are not investigating this or not taking this seriously, what I'm finding, or they don't seem concerned. So let's talk about that. We have, let's see, the board members, the Board of Commissioners are Miss Kedra, Greta Gardner, who we know is the person who's had the rubber stamp for the checks in the past. So there's Kedra, Greta, Martin Andrews, Ms. Whirly Bird, and Mr. Bo Harrison. Now, Bo and Whirly are new, so I'm guessing, would lean close into what the president helps them to understand, and I guess they've been going to training. because I can see where they've traveled some recently to some of the trainings. And then there's Miss Greta Gardner. She's not in the greatest of health, although she's been on the board for a long time. I believe she is not much of a leader. She's more of a follower. It's from what I have seen, and I've only been to one meeting. She always looks at Mr. Andrews before a vote is made or a decision is made. But like I said, I only went to one. She often in the meeting minutes seconds whatever Martin proposes. Kind of a sign. There's never any discussion. There's never any, it's the strangest thing I've ever seen. When it comes to Martin Andrews, he is he's a former first responder. He was, I believe, I think I'm captain, the head of the local fire department. And he's retired. And he has at one point has owned a construction company, which is not uncommon for firefighters to have an outside job outside of on the days they're off. They often do things like tree removal, certain kinds of construction jobs and things like that. He's also involved in a couple of nonprofits. And I'm really curious if those nonprofits benefit from some of the monies that come through Columbus Community Housing Development Organization. He has been involved, according to state records, with an organization on the South Side, and they feed children in the summer. The kids who are on free lunches and free breakfast at school. This organization through a church tries to fill the gap in the summer. It's a great, admirable program. I have no problem with that. He also has his name on an organization that is to provide daycare for women who are starting over or who want to complete their education and have small children at home and no means of family or financial support to keep the children while they try and get on their feet. And so that's called ING or INGE, Inc. INGE, INC. Now the agent on that is a guy named MacArthur Ing or Inge. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I'm sure he's a fine, outstanding gentleman. And then Martin is one of his members. That's his one of his officers. What's interesting about that is I'm not sure. Do they benefit from the monies over at Chodo? Because it aligns very closely with some of the stuff Chodo's doing. Is there any what's the impetus of Martin being on the Chodo board, the board, which is also the board for the Columbus Housing Authority, and for him being so protective of the bad behaviors of Robert Guthrie and his financial misdealings. He seems to have abdicated from his fiscal responsibilities as a member of the board, and he doesn't seem, from any of the things I've seen, he hasn't responded to an email, he hasn't responded to a Facebook message, he hasn't responded to anything where I've asked for him to explain some of these financial shenanigans that I've seen. I understand that he's actually wishes I would just go away and they didn't have to give me the information that I am gathering through public records requests. I don't understand why he would be willing to sacrifice his good name and his standing in the community as a deacon in his church and as a past leader of the Columbus Fire Department, and his work that he does currently, because I understand he's employed currently. I don't understand why anyone would be willing to sacrifice all of that so that Mr. Guthrie can continue to um, have all these lunches and dinners on our dollar. I don't understand why someone with as prestigious of a background in this community would not want transparency in both the Columbus Housing Development Organization and in the um, Columbus Housing Authority. So it's very curious to me that there is not a lot of transparency, nor is there any movement toward transparency, and that Mr. Martin Andrews is not interested in any transparency from the board and from the Columbus Housing Authority and from CHODO. I still have questions. I don't understand any of this. It would be useful if Columbus Housing Authority would actually be transparent and would show more of what they're doing, and if their board would be more forthcoming. Now, I'll talk more about my last public records request and how that was delivered to me and what a mess that is. And we'll talk more about that in a future episode. But so the basics of this is there's a non-licensed, non-bonded violent felon doing repair work, and God only knows what else over at CHODO. There's a board member who doesn't want to be transparent and is trying to lead the rest of the board against being transparent. And there's a whole bunch of money being spent in ways that's not proper and no accountability for it. So those are my questions for today. If you got any answers, if you have any more insights, if you have something else you want me to explore in this series, I'm here and I'm all ears. And I'm Shannon Evans, and this is the Tom Digby Tales.